Hello, and welcome to Turning60, and the first in a series of interviews with people who are making the most of their lives after 60. Today, Pete Richards joins us to share his thoughts on retirement and life after 60. Okay, Pete, so can you tell us something about your life before turning 60?
Yeah, it would be nice to say that it was planned. Right, I'd like to say my life has been planned out, and I've worked to a plan. But no, I've basically just taken advantage of things as they've come up. I remember a little while back. Do you remember Anderson's, the consulting company?
I do.
Way back, I did actually try to. I answered a recruitment thing and actually tried to get employed by them, and they turned me down. And I was really, I found it a bit strange. Why I'd been turned down, because I thought I'd got plenty to offer. And they said afterwards, because you weren't focused enough on your career. And I thought, okay. So I hadn't been focused enough on being an accountant. And I was glad they actually didn't choose me, because to be quite honest, you'd be so focused on being an accountant by the time you're 30, you're probably not worth, employing anyway. So anyway, my career has not been focused. Thank you, Anderson's. And I've basically just, bimbled through it and done things as things have happened. So going back to the start, I initially started after university as an army officer. So I started off at Sandhurst. And I went back there recently, in fact, and I got my old Sandhurst report, which I was really intrigued to see, because I'd always liked to think that I was in the middle. I was the grey man, neither the best nor the worst, I was just down the middle. And it was absolutely true. Of 20 odd categories that they had graded, I was absolutely, A to E. I was C on all of them except 5 when I made it to B. But that's where I wanted to be, grey man right there in the middle. So anyway, that was the start of it. And from there, I then went on to work for a company that did the software for the Tornado aircraft. Okay. In the days when that was an up-and-coming aircraft, as opposed to the legacy aircraft that it is now, which shows, when you've had a career for 40 years or whatever, you suddenly find the things that you were working on become antiques and are actually in museums or whatever. So anyway, I worked on the Tornado aircraft. I then went to work at Sheerness Steel in the days when Sheerness had a steelworks, which has now completely disappeared. So although it was a small steelworks in steelwork terms, it was still a big site, and it's now just a car park. There's nothing left there at all. I think there's a couple of abandoned collections of wire and reinforcing rods that somebody's forgotten to take away. But apart from that, Sheerness still ceases to exist. From there, I went to Pfizer's down in Sandwich. And from there, I set up my own business, a water treatment company, and which I have just sold and which I have now retired from. So that's a quick resume of where I've been.
That is a quick.
I'd like to say, as I said at the beginning, that it was planned and I was going to do all these things and it was a career mapped out, but it wasn't at all. It was basically just taking advantage of opportunities as they came up.
I think that often makes for a more interesting life anyway.
Yeah, see where life takes you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that. And is there something that you've done in your life to this date that you're particularly proud of?
I think actually running my own company was something that, although I say I was never focused on a particular career, actually running my own company was something that I wanted to do. And so doing that and making reasonable success of it is something that I wanted to do. It may be that I can't work with other people and I have to have my own company. But it was, I do like as people will say, if running their own company, you don't have to work hard. Sure. You put the hours in, but you don't have to rely on anybody else for decisions.
No,
which can be an advantage and a disadvantage. But if you want to do something, you just do it.
And the rewards are all yours as well.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it was good to run my own company, and you have to learn on the job. I'm not an accountant. But I had to learn how to install an accountancy package and run that package, for instance. You also have to learn the technical side of the job that you're doing, and personnel management as well. So there's plenty that you've just got to get right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it seems something to be very proud of.
Thank you. Yeah. It's still going, I should say. Having sold it, the company is still going and going from strength to strength. And I'm wishing them all the best, you know. I think it'd be great if they do well.
Yeah, well, that's nice to have a legacy as well then, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah. Okay, so if I could just talk now about the act of turning 60. How did you feel when you were approaching 60? Was it what you expected?
To be honest, turning 60 was neither here nor there. The biggest milestone in terms of decades, I think, was coming out of my 20s into my 30s, because you suddenly, right, oh, okay, I'm an adult now. You know, you're no longer in your teens, you're no longer in your 20s. Turn 30 and now you're an adult, right? So there's no hiding. So that was the biggest thing. And also, of course, every decade another piece falls off your body or stops working or has to be repaired. So no, 60 wasn't in itself a big issue. And indeed, because I was able to sell the business, I hadn't even planned retirement. Pretty much, it was yes. Come 62, I thought, okay, start looking to sell the business, and once it got underway, it had a momentum all of its own, and so I sort of fell into retirement in a sense. So no, turning 60 in itself wasn't a big deal, and I wouldn't say, apart from 30, I wouldn't say that that decades should necessarily rule your life. You don't have to behave in a particular way. Unless if you look back, I don't know about your parents or whatever, but my parents and that generation, by the time they got to 50, they were beginning to get old.
Sure.
Yeah. Whereas I don't particularly think I've matured much beyond 18.
I think a lot of people say that 6 is the new 40.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think that's probably right. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And it's an attitude of mind. It's an attitude of mine. So if you still want to get out and do things, if you still want to take on new things, if you still want to explore, then that's a time. When you're 60 and you've got some time, that's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So with retirement often comes time to do the things that you wish you'd done.
Exactly.
Not been able to do previously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think that is one of the key things of turning 60. The idea of retirement and when that might happen and planning for it, as you say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Again, like everything I was doing in my life, I didn't really plan for it. It's just sort of happened. But having said that, one of the things that people, when I mentioned it to people at work, or that I was seeing, they were saying, "Oh, you'll get bored. You'll be fed up. Within 6 months, you'll have done all the gardening that can be done, and you'll be looking. You'll be twiddling your thumbs and getting fed up and wanting to go back to work." And I'm thinking, well, yes, it depends how you approach it. If you approach it as if you're just going on holiday, then if you're on permanent holiday, you will get bored. But this isn't a holiday. This is the rest of your life. It's another, third of your life or quarter of your life or something, isn't it?
Potentially.
There's another 20 years to go here. So that's, it's a third of my life yet to go, or a quarter in total. So say you make it to 80, whatever. So it's not you're going to go on holiday for 20 years. You've got 20 years to do something. So it's the next stage of your life. It's the next adventure in your life.
I couldn't agree more, and that's exactly what turning 60 is
all about. Yeah.
Well, just to finish this segment, is there one thing you'd wish you'd done before you turned 60?
I think the only thing I can think of would have been to start my business earlier, but whether I could have done that, I don't know. Because I was working at Pfizer and with a family, and just stopping that to go and to set up your own business is quite a step. Sure. And if you've got a family, it's quite a step into the unknown to just give up a good paid job and so on, and then just start something from scratch. So I don't think, although I would like to have done it earlier, I don't think I could have done it any earlier. no, on the whole, I think when I've had a chance to do something, I've done it, which is probably another thing, to say to people, isn't it? That if you get a chance to do something, go out and do it, because that opportunity doesn't necessarily come again.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. I often hear about people putting things off until retirement, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
when you reach retirement, maybe the circumstances aren't the same that you're able to do them.
You may not have the health to do it. You may not have the money to do it. You may not be fit enough to do it. Yeah. Carpe diem. Seize the day.
Indeed.
Do what needs to be done. Yeah.
Okay, so if we can move on to talk about life after 60 and your plans and perspective for the future. How do you intend to make the most of your life after 60?
Well, I've got a few hobbies. One of which is flying. All right, learning to fly, and I'm just about. I keep saying I'm always halving the distance to actually getting my license. I'm never quite getting there, but I've done all the exams. I've done the flying tests. I've just got to put a few more hours in. I've probably got another 5 hours, 5 hours and 5 minutes to be fair, of flying time before I actually am able to get my license. So that is one of the things that I've been looking to do, and it's a question of a hobby that is a stretch, and I've found certainly with flying that I've put myself in positions that I hadn't done before. One of which is just complete overload, where your brain has got so much to do, like a computer that's, I don't know, its cache is overflowing or whatever. Things start getting missed, and and the instructor might give you a fairly simple instruction, like turn right at a certain height or something, and you just completely forget it, or it just doesn't get done because there's just so much overload, and that's been quite an experience actually. I don't think I've had that quite until or since early days in some of the technical stuff I was doing, maybe at university or something, where you just get completely overloaded with something and things just get missed. So yes, I'm waffling on a bit there, but in terms of keeping myself busy or whatever, I think it really is a question of balance, isn't it? You've got time on your hands, you're not under pressure, but you want to do something that expands you nevertheless and take some thought. So I'm doing the flying. I'm also doing an astronomy course. Okay. So got myself a telescope recently. And so I think cold nights are a thing to look forward to from now on, because standing in the dark in the cold is what an astronomer does. I think is pretty much the thing for that. So yes, it's really a question of having something to expand you and keep going, and not only in terms of your mind, I think in terms of your body as well, because as you get older, your muscle mass starts to decrease, and so keeping active is a really important part of keeping fit and keeping your mind fit as well.
Yeah, I think they're both very important aspects of aging, and doing something as challenging as flying must be very good for keeping the grey matter,
keeping it moving.
Keeping it moving. But challenges are, I think, something that we need to make sure that we constantly have. Lifelong learning is a theme that we'll be exploring on.
That's part of TurningSixty's ethos. Yeah.
And again, as we've already touched on, retirement and how to have productive and enjoyable retirement. As you say, it's easy to slip into retirement without a plan, without a structure.
Structure. That's actually, I'll just pick you up on that. I think structure is a very important part of it, because it'd be easy to have every day the same and forget where you are in the week or whatever. And a certain amount of structure to your week, I think, is reasonably important, so that so one day is differentiated from another. Yeah. So you might, in my case, go flying one day. You might go to the gym another day. One of the other things that I'm doing, and actually I'll come back to it in terms of things that I wish I'd done earlier, I'm taking up learning French again.
Maybe.
Because, thank you. Because, again, it's a mental stimulation. and it's something that is a skill that would be useful. Going abroad, obviously. But if there was one thing that you asked me earlier about, which I'd like to have done before turning 60, it would have been to keep up with languages. Yeah. At school, I thought they were all a little bit, I won't use the word sissy, but you know what I mean. That it's, I was in maths, physics and chemistry were my things, writing languages are a little bit, not quite there. But actually, learning a language and so on is a pretty good skill, and I wish I had done it more back in the day.
It's also, from a health point of view, there are a number of things that help to keep the brain plastic, and learning a language is one of the main things that actually helps. Yeah. So, I think it's a very good thing to be doing, and one that I hope to be following your lead on. Now that you're retired and at the start, really, of this part of your life, what excites you most about this next chapter?
That there's no limit. While I'm fit and healthy, there's no limit to what you can do. I've got time. Mm-hmm. I've got reasonably well off, obviously, but so your future is mapped. Well, not mapped out. The future is ahead of you. You can do whatever you like, really. And it's up to you to actually get on with it. There's no constraints, except there's a dog that needs to be walked twice a day. But apart from that,
that's a good thing too. Getting your exercise in with the dog.
Yeah, get out with the dog. Exactly. Yeah. So that's exciting in that there's nobody looking over your shoulder telling you can't do it. There's nothing that there's no reason not to do something. So if there's an idea that you want to do, you just go out and do it. Yeah, and that you don't. It doesn't have to be expensive. Learning a language isn't expensive.
No. Looking at the stars.
Looking at the stars is not expensive. No, exactly. So there's plenty that can be done. Gardening's not expensive. So that's the next thing that my wife has got me lined up for is the garden. So after 27 years of ignoring it, I will have now got to get down to dealing with the garden.
Well, it's good to be productive too.
What, you're thinking in terms of veg?
Well, yeah, you never know.
Have you got a veg patch?
No, but we have thought about doing it. We have friends who have large tubs that they grow things in. Yeah. So, it's just that we tend to kill any plant that we intentionally plant. So, maybe one day.
That's not a bad idea, though. I might actually get a big planter or a few big planters just to grow some veg and so on in it. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I have tried it. I've tried it in the past, digging it into the ground, but there were so many weevils and insects and stuff that ate it.
Yeah,
it didn't work out.
When I was a kid as well, early teens, I think there was a summer where we grew some veg, and there was a lot of satisfaction to be had from eating a spud or a carrot that you'd grown yourself.
You've actually done yourself. The 1 out of 5 that actually survived the weevils. Yeah. Yeah, so I might well do that. Yeah, I mean at the moment it's planting flower beds and because we got really clay soil around where we are, so it's a question of digging it up, sieving it out, and mixing it with decent topsoil. But it's quite satisfying. Yeah, just sitting there, just doing that quietly for an hour after hour.
As long as you don't sit there watching them grow, that's probably not good use of your time.
Yeah.
Do you have a bucket list?
There is. I never really thought of a bucket list, but there's one thing that I would always like to have done. Maybe going back to what I would like to have done if I was 30 again. I've always liked the glamour of a bush pilot flying around Africa.
Oh, okay.
I know that if you were actually a bush pilot back in the 80s, 90s, you'd probably be co-opted by a drugs gang and be flying guns and drugs around the place. But I've always quite liked the idea of just being a bush pilot flying around. So the one thing that's perhaps on a bucket list is to fly over the Serengeti.
Wow.
I would like to just rent a plane and with a family,
Sure.
So we all disappear in one. So to just fly over the Serengeti, for a couple of days.
Okay.
I think it can be done. I have looked into it very, very briefly. You can hire planes, and just to fly around over that just would be nice to do. My son and I have got a week out in Spain, not this week, but a week coming up, where the two of us are going to be flying around Alicante as a way of getting some sunshine and some practice. But I would like, the bush pilot in me would like just to do a little bit around the Serengeti.
Well, that's definitely something worthy of a bucket list. After makes my bucket list look a little unadventurous. Saying, but okay, is there one thing that you can do now at 60 that you wouldn't have dared to do when you were 30?
I don't know. I was much more daredevil at 30 than I am now. I mean, I think what comes with age is a certain amount of caution.
Okay.
I do remember when I was running my company, we used to have boys' days out, and one of them was skydiving. One of them was at Brands Hatch, and we all went out and drove fast cars around Brands Hatch for the day. And I do remember that as I was coming out and indicating left and checking my mirrors and all the rest of it coming out, everybody was zooming past, like this. Blimey, I thought I was driving fast, but I wasn't. I was cautious and so on. So I think in terms of daredevil, I was more a daredevil at 30 than I am at 60. So in terms of what I would do now that I wouldn't have done then, there's nothing in the daredevil side of things. I mean, obviously I've got time to do things I didn't do then, but I am more grown up. I think.
Okay. So, looking back, if you could relive any decade of your life, which would that be and why? I'm getting a feeling it might be your 30s, but...
30s, yeah, 30s was good. I think, yes, actually, yeah, you're probably right. 30s would be good, because that's also when my sons were born. And that, if I could go back in time and just have a day here, there, I would love to go back when they were small again. Not permanently, but just, to take them out down the seaside again, back into the sea, something like that. Simple things, actually. Yeah. But taking them down to Bude, we always used to go down to the Devon and so on, and Cornwall, and go to Bude Beach again, and introduce them to the sea, and just play in the sand again. Yeah, or any day out, with them. I would love to do that. Or read them a story again at bedtime. Probably have to wait till grandparents now before that happens. Well, it will have. We're not actually going to go back in time, are we? So, but that, yeah. So, I think if it was a decade again, I wouldn't like to do the whole decade. It was hard work. I mean, it's looking after kids isn't easy, and working as well, obviously. But yes, I would go back and relive some of the times when they were small.
Yeah. No, I think that's a nice answer.
Yeah.
If you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be?
Well, yeah, I think. Well, I was at a reunion for Sandhurst, the platoon that we went through Sandhurst together, and the guy said to me there, it was a guy who had been back squadded, which means that he didn't make it through on the first pass. He was put back into a platoon that was following up behind. And to get back squadded is unpleasant. You've gone through all that work and you're nearly ready to pass out, and then you're told actually you're not up to it. You've got to go back and do the one of the terms again. Is a very hard thing to do. And he said to me when we met up just recently, he said that I had said to him when he was at his lowest ebb there, I had said to him that some of the best officers come through that route. And to me, that was not a throwaway comment, but it was a comment that I'd forgotten about. And I meant it at the time, but I thought nothing more of it. 40 years later, he spoke to me at this reunion and said actually that was one of the most important things that got him through it. And so I was pleased that I'd been able to help him with that, or even if, slightly unintentionally. And so it's made me think that if you have, the advice I would give is, if you have the opportunity to say something nice to somebody, do. And if you feel like you're going to say something unpleasant to somebody, don't.
Sure.
Because it's no skin off your nose, and it can have a massive effect going forward. So, we can have more of an influence on people than we think.
I agree. I have a not quite as big story, but my wife and I visited a friend of mine from university 20 odd years ago. And when he showed us to the room that we were staying in, there was a book on the bedside cabinet. And I said, "Oh, I've got that book. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics."
Oh, yeah. It's not one I've got.
No, it was a bestseller. But he said, "Oh, I know. You told me to read this book." And he said, "That book changed my life."
There we are.
So
Yeah.
you never know what piece of advice or words of comfort you might give.
Exactly. So if you've got the chance to do a nice thing, it's better to do it than a bad thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've been thinking for the last 20 years, I really must get round to reading that book. But,
yeah. So yes, that's what I would say. If you've got the chance to do a good turn, do. And if you get a chance not to, then don't,
Yeah. I think that's good advice at any age, isn't it? And I think you've touched on this already, but what advice would you give to someone who's turning 60 today?
Oh, look forward to it. Embrace it. You're going to have, it's up to you. You've got the opportunity to make the most of it. Yeah. Look forward to it and embrace it. Don't hanker after, things that, the work or whatever that you're putting by. I mean, my wife said, because I used to work very hard, my wife said, "You're never going to give it up, are you? You're always going to go back to it. You're always going to hanker after it, and you'll never give it up." I've given it up completely. Yeah, you don't look forward. Definitely look forward and embrace what's coming up. And you've got the ability to shape your own future. If you're working, then you're always constrained by something.
Yeah.
Your boss, your customers, the law or whatever else is constraining you. When you're retired, you're not constrained only by your own imagination. So if you want to do something, then go and do it. Yeah. So embrace it. Look forward to it.
I think
take it on.
That's great advice. And you also mentioned earlier about structure and the importance of that. And
Yeah. Because I mean, it's easy just to have the same day being exactly the same as every other day. Mm-hmm. And I think that then you potentially get into the situation where you can't be bothered to get up in the morning because there's nothing to look forward to or nothing different. So I would say definitely have something different each day that gives a structure to the week, but also a structure to the day. So, you don't have to get up at 6:30 to be in the office for 7:30 anymore. So you could set the alarm for 7:30. Listen to the radio for a little while, get up and have a structure to the day, take the dog for a walk or whatever. But if you lay in, say, till 10:30, the day's beginning to drift away from you. Okay, so it is still worth getting up and getting on with the day, having some structure to the day as well as to the week.
Yeah. Okay, finally, could I ask if you could sum up your life philosophy in a sentence, how would you do that?
Make the most of the opportunities you get. Right, my regrets, if I look back and the regrets, it's things that I've not taken, not seized the opportunity. I've let it go. I couldn't be bothered or something. So if you've got the opportunity to do something, absolutely do it. Yeah. Those are my regrets, are things that I've not done. I haven't done too many things that I regret. My regrets tend to be things that I have not done. So, seize it, do it.
That's grand. Yeah. Great advice, Pete. Yeah. Okay, so thanks very much.
Okay.
And keep enjoying your life after 60. Thanks very much.
Yeah,
mate.
good to see you.
Cheers.
All right.